Hello and welcome to the Racing Foxcatcher preview. My name's Julian Valance, joined as always up in New South Wales by a man who's just about having a quick drink of water. His name is Nick Ashman. How's the first part of the week? How's the middle part of the week? And how's this last part of the week going for you?
Last part of the week's always a highlight because I get to see you.
Wow.
But then I also start the week like that too. So it's just that little hump day. But we have dumpling day in the Ashman household. So we went out for dumplings last night.
Nice.
Hopefully a sign of things to come. The kids love it. So it's always good. Mum and Dad don't have to clean up after dinner. Also good. Tick, tick. And the father-in-law brought a bottle of red wine along last night as well. So 3 ticks there. So it's been a good start, a good middle, and hopefully a good finish to the week. But hey, Julesy, racing-wise, Scone Cup Carnival, one of my favourites for the country. You guys have got the bull down there. It's probably your biggest country cup carnival. Up here it's Scone. As you know, Scone is like horse heaven basically in Australia-wide really. It's the home of so many big breeding barns, and it's got a lovely big track. We'll talk about how it plays in a few moments' time. And then I also want to give a bit of love to Queensland as well. They've got a big day on Saturday. Doomben 10,000 up there. Things really starting to heat up. We'll say this, though, we're looking at a pretty wet track up there as well. So a little bit to pick through.
Absolutely, mate. Let's get into the track analysis for the 3 tracks we're going to look at. And you mentioned it off the top. So Scone, 2-day carnival. So look, obviously you can give us what you think is going to happen Friday, but then we're going to have to see what happens Friday and whether some rain or whether it dries out, whatever it might be, and then we'll have to play it again for the Saturday. But what I can say is Friday it's in the true position the entire circuit. Now already they've brought out what the rail will be for Saturday, which you don't see too often, but Saturday it'll be out 2 metres from the 800 to the 400 true remainder. But for that Friday meeting to kick off this 2-day carnival at Scone, how do you think this track's going to play?
It's looking like it might be a little bit off rail on the Friday. So you're looking for those bigger fields, middle sort of gates where you can get to the outside part of the track. It is, we think it'll cop a bit of rain before they get there. It's only a bit over 24 hours away as we record this show. So we are expecting a bit of rain. We're expecting it to come also on race day. We're looking at lanes 4 and beyond in the home straight. So you're probably looking for those horses that can either stalk the speed or settle midfield and finish down the centre part of the track. Typically with Scone, you want horses that can really see out the trip. It's a long straight, and particularly if the rail is a little bit inferior, you've got to be careful about backing horses that are only just get the trip. So that's for Friday. Looking at some historical data, I'd sort of like to keep it reserved. I love it when the information that I get sent matches up with historical data. That's when it's really, really powerful. On Saturday, looking at some historical data, it's a little bit more on speedish just as that rail comes out. But I think this year we might find it might be the other way because of that rain on race day on Friday. They'll get into those inner lanes and I reckon they might chop out, but we'll stand by and get a report on late Friday afternoon or first thing Saturday morning, and we'll push that new report through the socials, so keep an eye out for that.
That's really good intel, and as Nick just said, check out the socials because he'll give us an update of how this track might play on Saturday after we've had day 1 on the Friday. Victoria, they go to Flemington, out 4 metres the entire circuit. Now, we're up to 2 to 10 mils on Saturday. So fine Thursdays we do this. Friday, no issue at all. We know it's a good draining track, but we're in the middle of, back end of autumn into winter here. So the track doesn't dry out as well. So if we do get this rainfall on race day, no doubt we'll fall into the soft range at some stage. It's just how much we do get. If there's minimal, then obviously the track, I think, will remain on the firm side. In terms of the straight and how we think it'll play, once you get out with this rail a little bit and it starts getting into the softish range, inside lane's okay. I know we've pushed the narrative that obviously medium to wide lanes has always been the play probably for the last 2.5 years at Flemington. It just evens up a little bit when we get into these kinds of conditions. The circle, this is interesting. This is sort of a little bit typical Flemington, off-speed and advantage. Leaders a low percentage play. Now, that's not to say leaders can't win. If it's a really soft tempo and you've got a leader that's favoured, he's probably still going to be able to win. But just the numbers suggest to me that the leaders are a low percentage play when we get into these conditions, which is typical Flemington. That's how it usually does roll. So off-speed and advantage for the circle. That's Flemington. You've done Scone. I'm now going to flick us to Doomben, mate, because it is probably the start of their big carnival, culminating sort of in the Stradbroke at the end of the middle of June. But we've got a Group 1, which we're going to talk about very soon. True possession the entire circuit. But as you mentioned from the top, we're going to be in the heavy range here. So what does that mean for the intel?
Well, what they're telling us is that it'll be an off-rail day at Doomben on Saturday. So they're expecting lanes 5 and beyond to provide the bulk of the winners. So that's a real proper off-rail day. We're not looking at a corridor between lanes 3 and 7 or 3 and 8 or something like that. We're just sort of saying get away from the inside part of the track. And as a result of that, when we see this track pattern at Doomben, Jules, where it's off-rail, despite it being a leaderish track, it almost gets inverted. It becomes really hard to lead. So I'm looking for horses. That said, you don't want to be covering a huge amount of ground at Doomben either. So it's a tricky track to bet into because you're looking for a horse that can get a reasonably economical run, but then get to the outside in the home straight. So do your best with your speed maps.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point because you just touched on it then. Doomben usually, if you went, okay, we've got a flat deck, we're in the true position, good horses, it's usually inside, first 4 in running, that's the high percentage play of Doomben. And here when we've got this really heavy track and you've got really good intel, it's hard for people to get their heads around it because at the end of the day, they always have this preconception that Doomben is up and in. So going to be interesting, but that's really good intel for the punters out there because they probably might not have been thinking that. So that is outstanding. That's the track analysis for this week. All right, let's get into the Group 1 set. It is the sole Group 1 of the day in Australia. It is the Doomben 10,000, obviously on that same track. I looked at this race and I found it really interesting. Especially early doors, the market went up and Overpass sort of had a 3 in front of it, and I was like, boy, can't get him that short. He's a really interesting horse, and he's sort of can be your starting point, I think, for a lot of people. But from a map perspective, I thought there was a few horses here that wanted to roll forward. Like, I don't think this is going to be a really softly run Doomben 10,000 in my mind. What do you think about this, Nick?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Jules. I mean, you've got Zarastro's drawn the softest of the 3 main speed influences, and they are Zarastro, Overpass, and Rothfire. He's probably got the best natural stamina reserves out of those 3 horses. You'd back him to get 1,400 metres before you back the other 2. So I think he's going to want to draw that speed out of those horses and make it a true contest. And then, maybe a horse like Marzu presses the button on a heavy track and comes right across thinking, well, I'm better off burning a bit of petrol early than using that petrol on the bend. Schwartz is there as well. Hidden Wealth's no slouch out of the barriers. So I think there's a lot of natural pace here in the race. A horse like Benedetta, I think, probably gets a nice run. And as we sort of spoke about, yes, you want to be off-rail in the straight, but there's a pretty sort of I won't say hairpin turn for Doomben. You also don't want to be covering too much ground. It's a bit like Gosford last week where the rail was clearly inferior, but you didn't want to be trying to circumnavigate the field from last. And that's something that a horse like Sunshine in Paris' second favourite, or now the favourite, is going to have to do. She's got the best ratings overall over the past 12 months in this field. She's probably better on a drier track than what we're going to get. She's also going to be a long way back. Here's a couple of stats for you, Jules, as we go into the big one. So in terms of where you want to be positioned in the run, no horse has won from wider than gate 9 since Mr. Innocent in the year 2000. So that's the task that faces horses like Sunshine in Paris. That's the task that faces Libertad and Marzu and so forth, Schwartz, even Overpass, who was the original favourite for the race. Favourites do have a good record, though, in this race. They've won 11 of the last 30. And if you'd backed every single favourite since Apache Cat in 2008, had $100 on them, you'd be up over more than $1,000. So there's a little bit to take out. It's a hard race to put together, but all I can tell you is you need an economical run in transit because wide gates are big time on the nose.
Yeah, interesting. It'd be also interesting to see, looking at that data, of how many were actually on a genuine heavy track. So obviously, that could have some impact on it as well, because possibly a lot of those have been on that dry deck. Overpass is a really interesting one for me, and I just want to drill down on him a little bit here, Nico, because I think we immediately go, well, his best numbers, and this is true, his best numbers are on a dry deck. I don't think that's up for debate. There's no doubting that. But I think there also might be a narrative out there that he just can't go on really wet tracks, and I wanted to drill down on this. So you have to go back to 2022. He runs second to Nature Strip up the straight at 1,100 metres on a soft 7. He wins in 2022 on a soft track 1,200 metres at Flemington as well. So soft track form, okay. But you've got to go back to 2022 for that. And then you look at his heavy runs. And so when you look at the heavy runs and you go, okay, well, he's ran fifth, 6th. He's been beaten, 5 lengths, 1.5, 8 lengths, 2 lengths. And you go, okay, so he's failed every time. But then you look at his SP on those occasions, and he's $10, $16, $13. He's probably ran right up to the market expectation of where he was going to run anyway. There's that one outlier where he got beaten 2 lengths. I think he ran 5th or 6th, where he was $6.50. But to say that I think the narrative that he just can't go on wet tracks, I'm not 100% sold on. So I think those people that are probably pushing that, I'm just a little bit on the fence of that. In terms of real wet trackers, I think Head and Wealth is a genuine wet tracker. I reckon Marzu's best numbers are on a really wet track. Jetabil, probably a horse from left field. His best efforts, or that horse's best efforts, are on a wet track. So it's a really open race. I found this race really tricky, and as you said, it does create clouds in the race. If you were pushed, would you have a bet in the race?
Probably not. But I will say this, like I said, I thought Benedetta might have finally found the right race for her. I just want to echo your thoughts on Overpass as well. What's really important, you make a really good point here, or raise an important topic, and that is, don't just look at the black and white figures. He's got 4 starts on the heavy for duck egg, right? We get that. Go and have a look at those 4 runs. Yeah. So first one was in the Galaxy behind Shelby 66 when Shelby was going good. Yeah. He had no luck in the home straight. Go and watch the replay. He should have just about won the race with Timmy Clark in the saddle. His next run that he had was in the TJ Smith behind Nature Strip. What price Nature Strip in this race, by the way?
Yeah, exactly.
Two's on.
Two's on.
He's beaten 5.5 lengths. Nature Strip probably beats most of these horses by 5.5 lengths on a heavy track. His next run after that was in the same preparation. He went to the All-Age Stakes. 1,400 metres on a heavy track, as if this horse is going to do that.
Yep.
Forget about it. It was an end of prep run. And then his only other run, he was beaten 2 lengths by Lost and Running in that Premier Stakes when trying to get an Everest slot. He started at $6.50. Marzu was second. Masked Crusader was third. He was beaten 2 lengths in the race. Yeah. It's hardly a failure. So I agree with you. I think you've got to look a bit deeper into those stats. I think with Jetabil, I think he's better over 1,000 metres, particularly on a rain-affected track. So that would be my query with him, just at 1,200. I thought the first up run for Hidden Wealth that you referenced behind Libertad in the Victory Stakes had genuine excuses. The horse was wide, no cover. Probably doesn't get that on Saturday from barrier 2, and agree with you. On a heavy track, this horse is hugely suited. So Benedetta, Hidden Wealth are probably the 2 horses that I'd play. Beautiful.
So there's a bit of intel there, punters, that you can get your head around. That was the Group 1 set for this week. Righto, Nico. Nick's New South Wales set about to hit here. Now, it's only the one horse because we're going to sort of go elsewhere after it, but you've just got the one for Scone.
That's right. It's on the Saturday. Race 10, I did have one, but it's heading north, it looks like, to Brizzy on Friday. Race 10, number 8, Fearson. Now, he was in our horses to follow on Monday's Pandora's Fox. And the reason why we put him in is he was coming out of a slowly run takeover target stakes last weekend behind the mighty Barber. And he never, if you watch the replay, he's back towards the inside in the IG. He got going late. It was clearly they were always coming to this race. And what they wanted to make sure is that he was running right through the line last Saturday, which is what he did. He's better up to 13, sort of 1,400 metres. I think they'll be much more positive on Saturday at Scone. And if we do see horses from the front sort of having an advantage, this is a horse I think will be hugely favoured by the market. You're getting $15, $16 about him now. I'd have something on that. You could also probably have a peanut on Chrysaor in the same race. Julesy, first up last preparation at Flemington. Boy, oh boy, this horse stopped the clock there in that Valet Black Caviar listed race where he beat Nicolini Vito. Off the back of that, he was so good in that race. Off the back of that, he went to an Epsom handicap and started $15. That's how good that win was. You know what the conditions of that win was first up? 1,400 metres, wet track, big open spaces. Saturday, 1,300 metres, wet track, big open spaces, almost the same.
Yeah, no, I know that race well. I was on Nicolino Vito big. So, and he had double figures, Chris. And you're right. It was an absolute enormous figure. And it was so hard to work out what to do with it the next starts because you were like, it gets back to that. It's right in the race, as you said, the Epsom. So, and as you said, it did start $15. So there was merit behind that run indeed. That's Nick's New South Wales set. Let's get to my Victorian set, obviously, for Flemington on Saturday. We're going to start in race 3, a horse that we were involved with a couple of weeks ago called Happy Link, who let us down. But there's some excuses to that. So that we loved the first up run behind I Am Velvet, was off the map at Moonee Valley, heavily supported, ended up starting favourite. And as that Moonee Valley track's a tip at the moment, we didn't really want to play into that race at all, and it was hopeless, and it just more or less was eased down. But I like the fact that there was market support. Look, this is race 3, so hopefully we just avoid most of the rain, because I think this horse does need a dry track. To go back into, its first prep, Geelong maiden win, Sandown win. It knocked off a horse called Treasure the Moment. A lot of people go back and go, "Oh, it beat Treasure the Moment." Just to put this in perspective right now, it's absolutely irrelevant now of a horse beating a certain horse 12 months ago, 16 months ago, whatever it might be, because they go in different directions. So I'm not saying that franks the form, whatever the hell franks the form mean. So I want to be
with Frank.
Yeah. I want to be with Happy Link each way, third up. I just want to trust the form lines that it did last prep, trust what it did first up, forget about running at that Moonee Valley tip, and we'll be with Happy Link in race 3. And then we get to the last race. Now, I know this horse is off 26 days. It's deep into the prep. It's called Liberami. I just love the fact that this horse is on the minimum 54 kilos. So it's carried less than 57 once in its career. Now, this prep, it's carried 57, 57, 59, 59, 62. It's deep into the prep, as I said. I think this is its 7th run. But this is off 26 days. This is an acceleration horse. This is the one we talk about, Nico, plenty of times when we say some horses, when they go up in weight or down in weight, it doesn't matter because they just go at a certain speed and they can only absorb pressure. Maybe they've only got an 11.8 in it. This horse does have change of gears and it can accelerate quickly. And when a horse like this goes down from 59 to 54, they're the ones that you have to absolutely yellow highlight. It sets up really well for this horse. If it does rain, really good figures in the wet, just hard on Liberami here. I think it sets up well. Last time it carried close to 54 kilos. It carried 54.5. It was 4th up at 1,400 metres Flemington. Ideal scenario, very similar setup here. That's my Victorian set. All right, it's been on hiatus for a while, but we're going to go best of the rest, mate. So you've got 2 horses elsewhere out of New South Wales that we should be investing in, and I think they're both at Doomben.
Yeah, that's right. The first one comes up in race 6, Jules. Now, quite some time ago, Gay and Robbie Waterhouse went over to England and bought a horse called Delius, who was by Frankel, had a really good record over there, winning 3 from 7. He started 15 or 17 bucks it was in an Arc de Triomphe, which is, one of the best races in the world. He didn't race in the Melbourne Spring. They kept him. I rang Tim Clark a few weeks ago and I said, "What have you been on the back of this horse called Delius?" He goes, Yeah, I've ridden him in work. He's pretty good. But I said, "That's your Melbourne Cup horse. Make sure you get to Melbourne this year. I'll see you there," and all that kind of stuff. I had a bit of a laugh with him. Anyway, he said, don't rule out Alaukans, who went on and won a couple of times after that, it must be said, and one of the other horses for Gay. Anyway, those 2 horses ended up sort of going well, but then dropping off. He trialled this Sir Delius. Now it's changed his name to Sir Delius. And he rang me on his way home from the trials. And he goes, "That's a proper horse." Yes, That's a proper horse. And I said, "Where's it going?" And he goes, "It'll go to the chairman's first up, where it should be really well placed given how good his European form is and how good we think he is." And here he is. He's turned up at the chairman's. I was tempted to say something on our socials that he was 350 in all-in markets on Monday, but just with the rain coming, one of my things to be cautious of, and this is a separate conversation, is when you've got rain coming for a Saturday and you're playing those all-in markets, just remember, if the connections decide to scratch, you don't get your money back. So I thought I'll take the shorter price. I think he's a proper animal. I think by the end of this winter, we'll be looking at him as a Cups prospect. And I think he's kind of got that without a fight feel about him, except he hasn't had a run yet in Australia. So I'm real keen on him on Saturday. I've had one of my bigger bets for a while on him, so give him strength.
Yep.
And then in race 9, I just thought the Rough Habit, it's an interesting one here. The 3-year-old fillies have had the wood on the boys the whole season. Aliana smashed them in the Derby in Sydney here. If she didn't, Treasure the Moment would have smashed them. They're just better than the boys in the autumn. And Belle de Tel for Chris Waller goes up there. Chris has had great success putting Aliana against the boys. You know, he's had other horses, Autumn Glow. He's had Lady Shenandoah. He's just got it right with his 3-year-old fillies this year. He could have had Belle Tell waiting and going to the Doomben Roses. She's not. She's going to the Rough Habit. I wonder if she goes to the Queensland Derby off the back of that. That might be a pointer for your futures players. But for mine, she's a real wet tracker. Her only figure on that soft track was only a soft 5 in the Adrian Knox. The late speed there was huge. She beat Polimnio, who's a pretty handy horse. There was a reasonable margin back to third. I think she backed up against Treasure of the Moment. She wanted to over-race. She didn't handle the backup. If you watch the replay, she didn't drop ahead like she did 7 days beforehand. She should have done. So I think back with a little gap between runs, juice in the ground, J-Mac in the saddle. Geez, I like her at around that 5.50 mark as well.
Beautiful. So that's the best of the rest. Nice to have it back in the program. Let's get to the snap or don't snap. It's really quick here, Nico, because it's just one of mine from Flemington. So obviously we're saying to the punters we're either going to snap now because we think the price is worth taking now, or just hold off because we think there'll be a drift in the market, and you can hold off, back it later if you like it, and it will give you more money in your pocket. I'm going to go to race 4, a horse called Calcalo. It is the favourite now, and it's a really consistent horse. There's no doubting that. But around that $4.40, $4.50, I just think the market's going to take a set against it at some stage throughout betting. No real rating for it last start. As I said, I know it's a consistent horse and it draws really well and it's going to be hard to knock. I just think you're going to get a better price. I think there's a few other horses that the market will gravitate towards for this race. That was the snap or don't snaps. Let's get to pin the tail very quickly. Last week we talked about Giga Kick in the Goodwood. You were $2.50. I was $2.10. There was good support for this horse, and we spoke about this in the review, whether it was right or whether it was wrong, but he did end up starting bang on even money Giga Kick, so it ends up kicking out to 7.5 my way. Let's go to Overpass in the Doomben 10,000, and again see that we're pretty well aligned here. I'm $4.80, and you're just a tick above me.
I've top dressed you. I've done your trick, haven't I? Well, look, truth be told, I was when I only had a first glance. You did send me your price first. I had a first glance and I thought, he'll be between $4.50 and $5.50, just looking through some figures. And I end up just going with smack bang in the middle of $5. Look, to be honest with you, I can see him getting, if it's really heavy, even though we've highlighted the fact that some of that heavy track form's a bit misleading in terms of black and white figures, he could get more than $5.50, seriously. If that fence is poison, if they're travelling sort of 3 or 4 off the fence the whole way around, and the market thinks that Mazu is just going to put the foot down, Rothfire and all that, well, you might get $6 about Overpass, to be fair. Yeah,
I think, and this is what we do this little segment for as well, is yes, we're trying to predict the price. We're also trying to lead the punters into that we probably think if that price he is now, say $4.20, $4.40, I just don't think there's any need to be taking that price about this horse right now. As for the reasons that Nick mentioned, I think you're going to get north of that. How north? Maybe it's worth waiting till the death, because it might probably be the best price you ever get about Overpass in the Doomben 10,000, I think. I think that's probably going to be his top fluck. He's probably right at the death for Overpass. That was Pin the Tail. Okay, punters, favourite segment of the week, obviously. It's Daisy's declaration. He ain't in here. Now, the problem I have is I actually don't know where he is. He could actually be in Bombay, from all that I have heard, and maybe some background music, background noise might give it away. But Daisy, what doing?
G'day, punters. Daisy Thomas here. Apologies for speaking a little bit quiet. I'm in the Qantas business lounge, so try and keep this as professional as possible. Thursday night footy tonight. Let's have a look at the Thursday night and Friday night games before I get into the declaration of the week. The Suns and the Hawks up to Darwin. The trend is your friend here. High-scoring affairs, lots of shots on goals. Gold Coast Suns 15-16 last week. That's 31 shots on goals. And the Bulldogs 14-12 at 26. So I'm pretty keen here. Wet, slippery ball to play in the small forward market. Ben Long, Nick Watson, Dylan Moore. Good, that's an mate. Sam Flanders, all you to kick 2 or more goals. Get you $19.74. That's where we're looking there. Sydney taking on Carlton. The line goes up here at 7.5. You can have the start for the Blues. I think Sydney are going to get rolling here, and this is where they start to make a charge from this point on to the back end of the season. 1-39 is where I'm looking for the Swans to be winning. $2.05 currently on the PointsBet app. Swans have won 13 of 15 against the Blues. That goes all the way back to round 14, 2001. That's by an average margin of 32 points. you are a same game multiplayer, just keep in mind that Sam Walsh had 20 disposals in his corresponding game last year. That's his lowest in 8 career games against the Swans. Here it comes, the declaration, and we are going to the Ramsden on Saturday, and we're going to the top weight here in Smokin' Romans. Price is handy enough, we like that. Couple more factors I'm pretty keen on here. Slow or heavy track, soft, heavy track, not an issue. Rolls forward, makes their own luck, win the match on board, perfect roll. That Athabaskan, the favourite at the minute, one go on the heavy for no result. Now, I think that becomes a query. Pat needs to get back. It draws wider than Smokin' Romans as well. So Smokin' Romans takes luck out of the equation. I'm happy to play there. And when we do, after we do it responsibly, we will be saying, hey, the people.
Plays of the day, mate. So we're just about done. You start us off. It is with one of those at Doomben because it's a little bit earlier in the day compared to mine.
Yeah, race 6, number 1, Sir Delius for mine. Everything that I've mentioned, I think he'll win, and I think either on Saturday night or in a few weeks' time when he wins another race up there, that we'll be talking about him as a Caulfield and Melbourne Cup prospect.
Well, that's a big wrap for a horse called Sir Delius, so make sure you put that in your black book, punters. Mine, it's the last race at Flemington, as we spoke about. Liberami, yes, he's off 26 days. Yes, deep in the prep, but I just love the fact that if there's a bit of rain about, figures are outstanding. I love the Flemington form line, but what I love the most is that this horse is an acceleration horse and drops to 54 kilos. Last time something like that, it did win a race at Flemington, very similar. So want to be with this horse, Liberami, in the last at Flemington. Mate, we're done and dusted. Outstanding as always, especially with the track stuff and your Doomben 10,000 work. I will see you Monday.
Definitely, mate. And hey, listen, we'll do a post. Look out on the socials for Scone on Friday, one of my favourite days of the year. So we'll make sure we have a bet and a little bit of track information and an update for you on Friday morning.
Beautiful. Look out for that, punters. See you, mate.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.